Emma stood behind the cashier counter, her eyes tired but filled with the kindness she had been known for all her life. In her early 30s, she had the face of someone who had seen the weight of the world but still carried on. Her uniform was worn, the fabric faded from constant use. The bell above the door rang as another customer entered, and Emma forced a smile as she greeted them, her thoughts already drifting to the pile of overdue bills sitting on her kitchen counter. Emma's life felt like an endless loop of working long hours at the small, underpaid grocery store, just scraping by. She barely managed to pay her rent every month, often needing to borrow money from friends to make ends meet. The thought of ever getting ahead seemed like a far-off dream. The death of her mother had been the breaking point, and now, with her father gone as well, Emma was left to take care of her younger brother, Ben, a responsibility she held close to her heart, even though it left her exhausted and stretched thin. There were days Emma didn't have enough to eat herself, all for the sake of making sure Ben was well fed. At times, she even skipped her own meals to buy him the things he needed for school, knowing full well she'd have to deal with the hunger pangs later. The thought of her future, and the future she had promised to create for Ben, always lingered in her mind. Frustrating, almost unbearable, yet ever-present. She had dreamed of a life that was different from this, one that wasn't a constant struggle to make ends meet, but reality always knocked her back. No matter how much she tried to save, it seemed that something, be it an unexpected bill or a medical expense, always wiped out her best efforts. Emma could feel herself sinking deeper with each passing day, but she tried to hold on to the hope that something better would eventually come along. Despite the hardships she faced, Emma was a light in her community. She was known for her selflessness, for always offering a helping hand, even when she had nothing to give. Whether it was listening to an elderly neighbour's stories, offering a meal to a struggling parent, or even giving away her last bit of change to a homeless man she passed on her way home, Emma's kindness had earned her the love and admiration of the people in her small town. To them, Emma was someone who could always be relied upon, someone whose heart was as big as her struggles. She never complained, never asked for anything in return, even though she was the one who needed help the most. Every day was a challenge, but Emma chose to keep giving, even when it felt like life had given up on her. It was a rainy afternoon when Emma's routine walk home from the grocery store took an unexpected turn. The dark clouds above had turned the streets into a blur of grey, and the heavy rain seemed to echo the weight of Emma's thoughts. She pulled her jacket tighter around herself, trying to shield from the cold, when something caught her eye. Sitting alone, on a park bench, soaked to the bone, was a young girl, no more than 14, by Emma's guess. The girl was huddled against the rain, shivering uncontrollably, her pale face almost blending with the cloudy sky above. Her clothes were drenched, clinging to her thin body. She looked unwell, her hands trembling in the cold and her eyes vacant, as though she didn't know where to turn. Emma's heart immediately went out to her. Despite the exhaustion weighing on her, she approached the girl, her steps hesitant, but driven by a compassion that had always defined her. "Hey there," she said softly, not wanting to startle the child. "Are you okay?" The girl lifted her eyes slowly, almost surprised to be noticed. Her voice, when it came, was weak. I've been feeling sick for days, but I don't have any money to see a doctor." She shivered as another gust of wind hit, her thin frame barely holding up against it. Emma could see the raw vulnerability in the girl's eyes, something that tugged at her own fears and memories. She knew what it felt like to feel invisible, to be stuck in a place where no one noticed your suffering. In that instant, Emma's own troubles seemed far away, Emma's immediate action. Without thinking, without hesitation, Emma took a step forward. "Come with me," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. "I don't have much, but I can at least give you something warm. You need to get out of the rain." The girl looked at her warily, her exhaustion and fear written all over her face. "I don't want to be a bother," she muttered, her gaze flickering nervously from Emma to the wet ground. Emma knelt down beside her, offering a comforting smile. "You're not a bother. I can't just leave you out here. Come on, you need to rest." There was a long pause, but finally, the girl nodded, her shoulders slumping in resignation, and Emma helped her to her feet. Together, they walked through the pouring rain, Emma holding up her jacket to shield the girl from the worst of it. As they walked, Emma tried to talk to the girl, hoping to comfort her in any way she could. She introduced herself and asked the girl's name. "I'm Sophia," came the quiet response. Emma smiled, trying to put her at ease. "Nice to meet you, Sophia. I live just down the street. I don't have much, but I can make you some tea and let you rest for a while. You must be exhausted." Sophia didn't respond right away, but Emma could tell the girl was beginning to relax just a little. Once they reached Emma's small apartment, Emma quickly made her way inside, guiding the girl carefully past the few boxes of old things she had left over from her mother's passing. Her place was modest, cramped and often untidy, but it was hers. She grabbed a clean towel and helped Sophia dry off as best as she could before settling her on the couch. "I don't have a spare bed, but this should be comfortable enough for now," Emma said, tucking a blanket around the girl's shivering form. Sophia finally spoke, her voice soft, almost as though she was speaking to herself. "I don't really have anywhere else to go." Emma's heart clenched, knowing that the girl wasn't just sick. She was alone. She put a mug of warm tea into Sophia's hands, sitting beside her. "You're safe here for now. You don't need to be alone." The girl hesitated, then slowly took a sip of the tea. Her hands stopped trembling slightly as the warmth spread through her, but her eyes remained distant, as though she were afraid to trust. As the girl drank the tea, Emma noticed the sadness that seemed to settle around her like a heavy cloak. "I'm sorry if I'm being too forward," Emma said gently. "But what happened? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." Sophia looked up, her eyes clouded with something darker than illness. "I ran away," she whispered. "I couldn't take it anymore. They sent me to a foster home after my parents died, and it was worse there." She paused, her voice shaky. "I don't want to go back. I'm scared of what they'll do to me." The words hung in the air between them, and Emma could feel the weight of them in her chest. This was no ordinary sick girl. There was a brokenness to her, a sadness that Emma couldn't ignore. She'd been through things Emma could never imagine, and now, in this very moment, she was here, alone, shivering, scared. Emma placed a hand gently on the girl's shoulder, offering what little comfort she could. "You don't have to go back to anything that hurts you. You're safe here. We'll figure something out." As Emma settled next to her, they sat in silence, the storm outside fading into the background. For the first time that day, Emma didn't feel the weight of her own struggles. In helping Sophia, she found a sense of purpose that felt far more significant than anything she had known before. Days passed, and with each one, Emma found herself growing more attached to the fragile girl she had taken in. Sophia's condition slowly improved, thanks to the medicine Emma bought with the last of her savings. Though Emma didn't have much to offer, she made sure Sophia had a warm meal every day, even if it meant going without herself. Sophia's initial reluctance began to fade as she gained a little strength. She started helping Emma with the household chores, even though she was still weak and needed to rest often. She would do small things like drying the dishes or folding the laundry, always with a quiet determination that made Emma smile. Sophia wasn't just a guest in Emma's home anymore. She was becoming a part of her life, a small piece of comfort in the chaos that had so often surrounded Emma. The bond between them grew quickly, despite the hardships. At night, they would sit together on the couch, sipping tea and talking quietly. Emma found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done in a long time. And for Sophia, the warmth of human connection was a rarity she hadn't felt in years. The girl, who had been a stranger just days before, now felt like family. Sophia would often give Emma small smiles or gentle touches on the arm, and Emma could see the subtle shifts in her demeanour, her walls slowly coming down, piece by piece. Despite the tenderness of their connection, there was something Emma couldn't shake. The girl was still so distant, her eyes haunted with secrets. Whenever Emma tried to ask about her past or where she was from, Sophia would quickly change the subject or withdraw into herself. Emma didn't push her, understanding that trust couldn't be rushed, but it left her with an unsettling feeling. One night, as they sat together, Emma noticed the way Sophia's eyes wandered nervously when a car drove past the apartment window. The girl had been looking out the window a lot lately, and Emma noticed that she always seemed to tense up whenever someone knocked on the door, or when someone called on the phone. "Sophia," Emma began softly, trying to keep her voice light. "Where did you grow up? What happened to your family? I want to help you, but I need to know more." Sophia flinched at the question, her hands tightening around her mug, and for a moment Emma thought she might withdraw again. But instead, Sophia looked up at her, her eyes clouded with uncertainty. I don't really want to talk about it." Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. I'm just trying to get by. I don't want to go back. Please, understand." Emma's heart ached for her, but the unease in her chest grew. There was something Sophia wasn't saying, something Emma couldn't quite grasp. Sophia had been in the foster care system. That much was clear. But her silence about her past only deepened Emma's worry. What kind of things had she been through that made her so afraid to speak about it? Why wouldn't she talk about her family? Emma, despite her own struggles, knew she couldn't live with the uncertainty. She had been raised to believe that kindness meant offering help, not only when it was easy, but when it was hard too. And this was hard. But Emma couldn't ignore the fact that there was more to Sophia's story than the girl was letting on. "Sophia," Emma said gently, "I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but if there's anything you need to tell me, anything at all, I'm here. I can't promise to make everything better, but I can promise you won't be alone." Sophia stared into her tea for a moment, as if weighing her options. The girl's lips trembled, and Emma could see the emotions battling within her. But after a long silence, Sophia simply nodded, though her gaze never met Emma's. "Maybe," Sophia murmured. "Maybe I'll tell you, someday, but not yet." Emma didn't press further. She had learned over the years that some things couldn't be rushed. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia's secrets were deeper than she could imagine. And every time she looked into the girl's eyes, the fear in them spoke of something far darker than a mere sickness. Emma's concern grew each day, but she held on to the hope that, in time, Sophia would trust her enough to share her story. In the meantime, Emma made it her mission to care for the girl as best as she could, putting her own needs aside for the first time in what felt like forever. It was an ordinary evening, and Emma was finishing up her chores when she noticed something alarming. Sophia was nowhere to be found. At first, Emma thought the girl had simply gone out for a walk or to get some fresh air, but as the minutes turned to hours, anxiety began to creep in. Sophia never stayed out late, especially not in her fragile condition. Emma's mind raced. She checked the apartment from top to bottom, called out for her in the hallways, and knocked on the neighbors' doors. "Have you seen Sophia?" she asked desperately. But no one had seen the girl all evening. Panic set in. What if something had happened to her? What if she was in trouble? Or worse, running from something? In her haste, Emma rushed to the park where she had found Sophia just days earlier. She searched frantically, calling her name, but there was no sign of her anywhere. Her heart raced as fear gripped her. Sophia had only just started to trust Emma. Had she slipped away because Emma had pushed too hard, or was something more sinister at play? Emma couldn't stop herself from worrying, but she had no idea where to turn next. Just as the sky began to darken, Emma returned to her apartment, exhausted and heartbroken, not knowing where to look anymore. She slumped against the doorframe, her hands trembling. It was then that the doorbell rang, sharply cutting through the silence. Emma opened the door with a sense of dread, and standing there was a man who didn't seem like he belonged in this neighborhood. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit, with dark sunglasses obscuring most of his face. His appearance contrasted sharply with the modest surroundings, and for a moment, Emma was taken aback. "Good evening," the man said in a calm, professional tone. "I'm Mr. Marcus. I'm looking for a young girl named Sophia. I was hoping you could help me." Emma froze. "Sophia? What do you want with her?" Her voice came out more defensive than she intended, but the fear of the unknown was too great. "I'm a private investigator," Mr. Marcus explained. "I've been hired to locate her. We believe she may be in danger." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She quickly explained the events of the past few days, how Sophia had come to her, in need, how she'd cared for her as best as she could. She also told Mr. Marcus about the girl's reluctance to talk about her past, how she refused to discuss her family or where she was from. He listened intently, his eyes scanning her face for any hint of deception. When Emma finished, Mr. Marcus gave a slow nod. "Thank you for your help. You've been kind to her, and I believe that's what she needed right now. But there's more to this story than you know, Emma." The words hung in the air, and Emma's stomach churned with a growing sense of unease. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to mask the panic she felt creeping up her throat. Mr. Marcus took a deep breath before speaking. "Sophia is not just any ordinary girl. She's the daughter of Nicholas Winters, the CEO of Winters Enterprises, a luxury hotel chain, one of the richest men in the city. Sophia has been missing for weeks, and we believe she ran away from home." Emma's world tilted. She stared at the man, trying to process what he was saying. "What? No? That's impossible," she stammered, trying to make sense of the revelation. The quiet, sick girl she had taken in, the one with such a tragic past, she couldn't possibly be the daughter of one of the wealthiest men in the city. It didn't make sense. But Mr. Marcus was unwavering. "I'm sorry to shock you like this, but the truth is, Sophia is very much a part of a world you've never seen. Her father is a powerful man, and she's been living a very different life than the one she's shown you." Emma's mind raced. She had never asked Sophia about her family's wealth or status, assuming that she was simply a girl down on her luck, much like Emma herself. But now, the girl's strange behavior and hesitation to talk about her family started to make more sense. She had been hiding something, hiding who she truly was. As the weight of the situation sunk in, Emma felt a mixture of emotions: betrayal, confusion, and even anger swirled within her. How could Sophia have kept such a secret from her? Why hadn't she trusted Emma with the truth? Before Emma could ask any more questions, she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned sharply to find Sophia standing in the doorway, her eyes wide and filled with guilt. Sophia's presence at the door was almost like a moment frozen in time. She looked dishevelled, her clothes still not fully dry from the rain earlier that day. Her hair hung messily around her face, and she seemed to shrink under the weight of the situation. Emma could see the guilt and fear in her eyes, and for a moment, everything became still. Sophia looked from Emma to Mr. Marcus, then back to Emma, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to worry you," she whispered, her face flushed. "I'm sorry." Emma's heart ached for the girl. The last few days, Sophia had seemed so fragile, so lost, and now this, a tangled mess of lies, secrets, and half-truths. She didn't know what to say, her emotions a whirl of confusion. Mr. Marcus stepped forward, speaking gently to Sophia. "It's okay, Sophia. You're safe now. I've been looking for you. Your father is worried sick." Sophia flinched at the mention of her father, and a pained expression crossed her face. "I don't want to go back there," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, don't make me go back." Emma could feel the conflict between the two. Sophia didn't want to return to the life she had left behind. There was something deeper here, something more than Emma had ever known. Sophia turned to Emma, her eyes pleading. "Thank you for everything. I'm sorry for not telling you the truth, but I had to leave." Emma didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, understanding that the girl's struggle was far from over. But Sophia's words hit Emma hard. She had given so much of herself to help this girl, and now the truth was unraveling, revealing a much more complicated story than Emma could have ever imagined. As the night grew darker, the weight of everything they just learned hung heavy in the air. Emma had wanted to help a girl in need, but now she was tangled in a mystery that could change everything. And Sophia was caught between two worlds, each pulling her in different directions. The tension in the room was palpable. Mr. Marcus, standing firm and composed, explained that Sophia had run away from home after a heated argument with her father, Nicholas Winters. Emma listened intently, trying to wrap her mind around the complex situation that was unfolding before her. "Her father is a powerful man," Mr. Marcus continued, his tone matter-of-fact. "Nicholas Winters runs Winters Enterprises, the largest hotel chain in the city. He's one of the wealthiest and most influential people in the business world. But despite his wealth, he's been neglectful of his daughter's needs." Emma felt a pang of disbelief. How could a father, with all his resources and influence, fail to notice his daughter's pain? She could hardly reconcile the image of the cold, successful businessman with the emotionally distant father that Mr. Marcus described. "Why didn't he notice her pain?" Emma asked, her voice cracking with confusion. Mr. Marcus sighed, his eyes softening with sympathy for Sophia. "Nicholas Winters is consumed by his empire. He's a workaholic, focused on expanding his business at the cost of everything else. His relationship with Sophia had always been strained, but it reached a breaking point recently. Sophia had tried to reach out to him, begging for attention, but all he cared about was his next deal, his next hotel opening. His neglect became her rebellion. Emma felt a deep sadness wash over her. She could see how that kind of neglect would lead a young girl like Sophia to feel abandoned. She had been searching for love, attention, and care in a world that seemed cold and indifferent to her needs. And in Emma, she had found someone who genuinely cared for her, even though Emma didn't have much to give. "So she ran away?" Emma asked, her voice quiet. "Yes," Mr. Marcus confirmed. "She left everything behind, hoping to find freedom. But it's clear that Sophia doesn't know what freedom looks like. She's been caught between two worlds, neither of which she feels truly connected to." The weight of the situation pressed heavily on Emma's chest. She had been doing her best to care for Sophia, and now she was realizing just how deep the situation ran. The girl she had taken in was the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the city. Emma had no idea what that meant for her own life. What if she became entangled in a mess she couldn't escape from? What if Nicholas Winters decided to take legal action against her for keeping his daughter hidden? Emma felt torn between two conflicting emotions. On one hand, she sympathized with Sophia. She saw how desperate the girl was for a chance at a normal life, away from the suffocating control of her father's world. On the other hand, Emma couldn't ignore the risks of getting involved with such a wealthy, powerful family. Nicholas Winters wasn't just a businessman. He was a man who could crush anyone who stood in his way. Sophia, sensing Emma's growing hesitation, spoke softly, almost pleadingly. "Please, Emma," she said, her voice full of emotion. "Please don't tell anyone about me. I don't want to go back there. You don't know what it's like. He doesn't care about me. He only cares about his business." Emma felt her heart ache for Sophia. She could hear the desperation in her voice, the pain of a daughter yearning for her father's love, but only receiving indifference in return. "I know, Sophia," Emma said gently. "But what will happen now? What are you going to do? You can't stay here forever. What about your father?" Sophia's face darkened, and she looked away. "I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't want to go back to that life. I don't want to live like that anymore." Emma's mind raced. She didn't know what the right thing to do was. On one hand, she had promised Sophia she would protect her, but on the other, Emma knew that hiding her would only complicate things further. Sophia's father, Nicholas Winters, was a man who didn't take kindly to disobedience. The last thing Emma wanted was to bring trouble to herself, especially when she had so little to begin with. "Why don't you just tell him the truth?" Emma asked. "Maybe he'll understand. Maybe he'll change. He's your father." Sophia shook her head violently. "No," she said, her voice sharp. "He'll never understand. He'll never change. He's always been like this. All he cares about is his hotels, his money, his image. I don't matter to him." Emma wanted to believe that there was hope for Sophia's relationship with her father, that maybe with time Nicholas could change. But deep down, she knew that a family built on such neglect couldn't be easily fixed. The wounds were too deep. Sophia's next words struck Emma harder than she anticipated. "Please, Emma, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that life." Emma took a deep breath, her thoughts swirling. She was caught between doing what was right for Sophia and doing what was safe for herself. She had already risked so much to help the girl, but now the stakes were much higher. The silence that followed hung thick in the room. Emma felt the weight of the decision bearing down on her. She looked at Sophia, who was staring at her with pleading eyes. "I'll help you," Emma said finally, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "But I need you to understand that this isn't going to be easy. Your father won't stop looking for you, and when he finds out where you are, it could cause a lot of trouble. Are you sure this is what you want?" Sophia nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. "I'm sure." Emma's heart clenched with both empathy and fear. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she couldn't turn her back on the girl who had trusted her when no one else had. Emma had already seen the darkness of neglect and indifference. She couldn't allow Sophia to be swallowed up by it. As Emma and Sophia faced an uncertain future, the conflict of what to do next weighed heavily on them both. Emma's decision to help Sophia, despite the risks, was only the beginning of a much bigger journey, one that would force both women to confront the power and dangers of the world that Sophia was born into. The question now was not whether Emma could help Sophia, but whether they could both survive the fallout from the choices they would make together. The morning after her conversation with Sophia, Emma was still reeling from the revelations. She barely slept, her mind spinning with worry and questions about what was to come. But nothing could have prepared her for the knock on the door that morning. When she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. Standing there was Nicholas Winters, tall and imposing in his tailored suit, exuding an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the modest apartment, and for a moment Emma felt like a mere speck in the presence of such power. "Ms. Emma Thompson?" he asked, his voice smooth but firm. "Yes?" Emma replied, her voice shaky despite herself. "I'm Nicholas Winters," he said, introducing himself with a subtle nod of his head. "I wanted to thank you personally for taking care of my daughter, Sophia. She told me everything." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She had expected a confrontation, perhaps anger or threats, but this man, this powerful stranger, didn't seem to be angry. Instead, his face softened just slightly, as if he was genuinely grateful, or perhaps simply trying to maintain control of the situation. "I understand that you've done more for her than anyone else in my family has in a long time," Nicholas continued. "For that, I am grateful." Emma didn't know how to respond. She had expected the father of the girl she had been caring for to be furious, to demand answers or take action. But instead, there was a strange calmness to him, as if he had already made up his mind about how to handle things. "Mr. Winters, I didn't do it for money. I just wanted to help," Emma said, trying to make sense of the situation. Nicholas gave her a polite smile, though there was a glint of something unreadable in his eyes. "I understand that. But that doesn't change the fact that you've gone above and beyond to help my daughter, and for that, I believe you deserve compensation." With those words, Nicholas reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a checkbook. He began to write something down, then handed it to Emma. Emma's eyes widened when she saw the sum written on the check. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life, enough to pay off all her debts, clear her bills, and even have a comfortable cushion to finally breathe. "I don't want your money," Emma said immediately, her voice firm, though the temptation was strong. "I didn't help Sophia for payment. I just wanted to make sure she was safe." Nicholas tilted his head slightly, as if considering her words. "I respect your principles, Miss Thompson, but the money is not just a gift. It's compensation. You've taken on a great responsibility, and I want to make sure you're taken care of." Emma hesitated. She wanted to refuse, to keep her dignity intact, but the reality of her financial situation gnawed at her. She was drowning in bills and debts, and the thought of finally escaping that crushing weight was tempting. It felt wrong, but the practical side of her mind urged her to accept. This could be her chance to live without the constant stress that had consumed her for years. "Mr. Winters, I can't accept this," she said, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "I don't want to take advantage of you." Nicholas placed the check in her hand, his grip firm. "It's not about taking advantage, Emma. It's about showing my appreciation for everything you've done. Please, take it. Consider it a token of my gratitude." Emma's mind was spinning. The money would solve so many of her problems, but something didn't sit right with her. She couldn't help but feel that there was more to this visit than just a simple thank you. She looked at the check again, and then back up at Nicholas. "I just want to help Sophia," she said softly, trying to understand what this all meant. Nicholas's expression hardened slightly. "And I want to make sure my daughter is safe and well. That's why I'm offering you more than just money. I want to offer you a job." Emma blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. A job? What kind of job could this man possibly offer her? She had barely held down a low-paying cashier job for years, and now Nicholas Winters was suggesting she work for him at one of his luxury hotels. "I'm offering you a position at one of my hotels," Nicholas said smoothly, his tone calm and calculated. "You would manage our charity initiatives. I've been watching you, Emma. You've shown a genuine selflessness in your actions, and I believe you would be a perfect fit for our philanthropic efforts." Emma stood frozen, her heart pounding. A job at one of his hotels? It sounded unreal. The world that Nicholas Winters operated in seemed like an entirely different universe: luxury, excess, and power. What could someone like her have to offer in that world? "I don't understand," Emma said, struggling to find the words. "I don't have experience in anything like that. I'm just a cashier." Nicholas smiled, almost as if he had anticipated her response. "I'm aware of your current job, Emma. But that's why I'm offering you this opportunity. You're a natural when it comes to helping others. With my resources and guidance, I believe you could do much more. This could be your chance to break free from the life you've been living. You have the potential to do something great." Emma felt overwhelmed. She didn't know what to think. The offer was tempting, yes, but she also knew that the world Nicholas Winters lived in was nothing like the life she had known. Would she be out of her depth? Could she trust him? "I'm not asking you to decide right now," Nicholas said, sensing her hesitation. "Take some time to think about it. I know that you've been struggling, and I can offer you a way out." Emma looked down at the check in her hand again, the temptation rising. She had always dreamed of a better life, one where she didn't have to worry about money, where she could have the stability and security that seemed so far out of reach. Nicholas Winters was offering her that, but there was something about the whole situation that felt too perfect, too easy. "I'll think about it," Emma said quietly, still unsure of what to do. "Thank you." Nicholas nodded. "Take your time, Emma. But remember, opportunities like this don't come around often. Don't let fear hold you back." As he turned to leave, Emma watched him go, her mind a whirlwind of confusion, fear, and excitement. She had just been offered a way out of her struggles, one that she never could have imagined. But at what cost? The man who had just walked out of her door wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He was the father of the girl she had taken in and cared for. And while his offer was generous, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into something much bigger than she was prepared for. What did he really want from her? What was his true agenda? Only time would tell. The days after Nicholas Winters' offer were filled with uncertainty and sleepless nights. Emma tossed and turned, her mind caught in a whirlwind of thoughts. The money, the job, the world that was being offered to her seemed like a dream come true. But it was also a world she knew little about, one that felt too foreign, too far removed from the life she had known. As she walked through her modest apartment, looking at the small spaces she called home, Emma couldn't help but think about Ben, her younger brother. He had always been her responsibility, the reason she worked so hard every day. She couldn't let him continue to grow up in this environment, where the future always felt uncertain. A better life for Ben. That was all she had ever wanted. But accepting Nicholas Winters' offer meant leaving everything she knew behind. It meant stepping into a world of luxury, of wealth and power. A world that felt like a fairy tale, but also felt dangerous, like something she might not be able to handle. She could still hear his words echoing in her mind. Opportunities like this don't come around often. Could she really pass up the chance to give Ben the future he deserved? to escape the constant worry about bills, rent, and surviving from paycheck to paycheck? Her heart was torn. On one hand, the idea of being part of the Winters family's world, managing charity initiatives, living without the crushing weight of financial stress, was almost too good to be true. But on the other hand, she didn't know what that would mean for her relationship with Sophia, or what kind of person Nicholas Winters really was. In the end, Emma knew there was no way out. She couldn't go back to the life she had. So, after days of agonizing over the decision, she finally made up her mind. The next day, Emma called Nicholas Winters to accept the offer. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "I'll take the job." When Emma told Sophia the news, it was a bittersweet moment. Sophia had been like a little sister to Emma, someone she had fought to protect, someone she had opened her heart to. Emma had taken her in when no one else would, and now she was stepping away from that responsibility. It felt wrong, like abandoning her, but Emma knew that in order to truly make a better life for both of them, she had to move forward. Sophia stood in front of her, her eyes sad but filled with gratitude. "I'm really happy for you, Emma. I know you're doing this for Ben, and I understand." Emma's eyes welled up with tears. "You're like family to me, Sophia. I don't know what I'd do without you." Sophia smiled faintly, her voice a little shaky. "I'll be okay. You've done more for me than anyone ever has. You gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere else to go. You gave me hope when I thought I had none. I'll never forget that." Emma hugged her tightly, knowing that this would be the last time they would be together in the same way. She had helped Sophia find the strength to face her father, and now it was time for Emma to find her own strength. It was time to step into a new world. "I'll miss you, Sophia," Emma whispered. "I'll miss you too," Sophia said, her voice trembling. Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. "But we'll keep in touch, okay? I'll always be there for you. You'll always have a place in my life." Sophia nodded, her face a mixture of sadness and understanding. Emma knew that things would never be the same between them again, but she also knew that this was the right decision, for herself and for Ben. That evening Emma packed up her things, preparing for her first day at the hotel. She didn't know exactly what to expect, but she felt a sense of anticipation. She had made her choice, and now she had to face the unknown. She took one last look at the small apartment that had been her home for so long, and in that moment she realized how much she had changed. She was no longer just the woman struggling to make ends meet. She was stepping into a new world, one that held both promise and danger. But Emma was determined to make it work. She had always believed that doing the right thing would lead to something better. And now she was about to find out if that was true. As she left the apartment and locked the door behind her, Emma knew one thing for sure. Her life was about to change forever. And while she had no idea where this new path would lead, she couldn't help but feel a sense of hope that had been missing for far too long. Sophia had given her the strength to take the first step, and now Emma was taking the leap. Emma's first day at the Winters Hotel was nothing short of overwhelming. The grandeur of the place, polished marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and immaculately dressed staff, was a stark contrast to the life she had left behind. Emma felt out of place among the elite clientele and the wealthy investors she occasionally passed in the halls. Yet, she reminded herself of why she was here. For Ben and the chance to make a better life. Her role was to oversee the hotel's charity initiatives, a position Nicholas had specifically designed to match her compassionate nature. While Emma was apprehensive at first, she soon found a sense of purpose in her work, coordinating food drives, organizing fundraising events, and creating programs to assist the less fortunate brought her immense fulfillment. Her co-workers, initially skeptical of her modest background, began to respect her as they saw her dedication. Emma's natural warmth and her ability to connect with people, regardless of their status, made her stand out. Over time, she became more comfortable navigating the sophisticated world of high society, though she never let herself forget where she came from. As weeks turned into months, Emma found herself spending more time with Nicholas. At first, their interactions were strictly professional, but gradually, he began to open up to her. One evening, during a quiet moment in his office, Nicholas confessed the guilt he carried over Sophia. "I was so focused on building my business," he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought providing her with a lavish life was enough. I didn't realize how much I was neglecting her until it was too late." Emma listened intently, her heart aching for the man who, despite his wealth and power, seemed so broken. "It's not too late to make things right," she said softly. With Emma's guidance, Nicholas took steps to rebuild his relationship with Sophia. He began spending more time with her, listening to her concerns and showing her that he was genuinely trying to change. Sophia, still wary, leaned on Emma for support during this process. Emma often found herself in the role of mediator, helping father and daughter navigate their complicated emotions. She encouraged Sophia to give her father a chance while reminding Nicholas to be patient. It wasn't an easy journey. There were arguments, moments of doubt, and times when both Nicholas and Sophia felt like giving up. But Emma's unwavering belief in their potential for reconciliation kept them moving forward. Slowly but surely, Sophia began to trust her father again. She returned to his mansion, but made it clear that her bond with Emma was unbreakable. In helping Nicholas and Sophia, Emma found herself growing in unexpected ways. She had always been the one giving to others, but now she was also learning to accept help and support. The respect she earned at the hotel and the deep gratitude from Nicholas and Sophia made her realize her own worth. Her relationship with Ben flourished as well. With her new income, she was able to provide him with opportunities she had never imagined possible: better schooling, extracurricular activities, and a stable, comfortable home. Emma often reminded him of their humble beginnings, ensuring that he remained grounded despite their newfound stability. Emma's life had transformed in ways she never could have anticipated. She had entered the Winters family's world as a struggling woman with nothing to her name, and had emerged as a respected professional and a valued friend. Yet, despite all the changes, she remained the same kind-hearted person who had taken in a sick girl on a rainy day. For Nicholas and Sophia, Emma had become more than just an employee or a friend. She had become the bridge that brought their family back together. And for Emma, they had become a reminder that even in the most unlikely circumstances, kindness could lead to extraordinary transformations. As she stood in the hotel's grand ballroom one evening, watching a charity event she had organized come to life, Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey had been anything but easy, but every step had been worth it. She had found her place in the world, not by chasing wealth or power, but by staying true to her heart. Time proved to be the healer and binder for everyone involved. Emma, once a stranger to the Winters family, became an integral part of their lives. Nicholas Winters, the man who had once been consumed by his business empire, found himself looking at life through a different lens. Sophia's joy and newfound trust in her father brought a warmth to his life that he hadn't felt in years. Sophia adored Emma, often calling her the sister I never had. Emma was more than a caretaker. She was a confidant, a guide, and a source of unwavering support for both Sophia and Nicholas. Despite their wealth, the Winters family learned from Emma the value of simplicity, kindness, and selflessness. As Emma grew more comfortable in her role, she began taking on greater responsibilities. Nicholas saw her potential and encouraged her to lead the hotel's charity initiatives on a larger scale. Emma introduced new programs, partnered with local communities, and even started a scholarship fund for underprivileged children, something she wished had been available to her when she was younger. Her reputation blossomed. People in the industry began to recognize her not just as an employee of the Winters Hotel, but as a changemaker. Emma's confidence soared, and her ability to inspire others became her most defining quality. She was no longer just surviving, she was thriving. Ben, too, flourished in this new chapter of their lives. Emma's sacrifices had given him a stable and nurturing environment, and he often expressed his gratitude to his sister, crediting her for the opportunities he now had. Amid the transformations, an unspoken bond began to grow between Emma and Nicholas. What started as mutual respect turned into something deeper. Both were cautious, hesitant to acknowledge their feelings, unsure if it was the right time. Nicholas admired Emma's strength, integrity, and unwavering kindness, while Emma saw a side of Nicholas that few others had, a man who was determined to be better, not just for Sophia, but for everyone around him. One evening, after a successful charity gala that Emma had organized, Nicholas walked her to the garden terrace of the hotel. The stars were bright, and the city lights shimmered in the distance. "You've changed my life, Emma," Nicholas said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "You've changed Sophia's life. I don't think I could ever thank you enough." Emma smiled, her heart beating faster. "You didn't have to thank me. I just did what felt right." Nicholas hesitated, then added, "You've become more than just a friend to us." "To me." Emma met his gaze, realizing that her feelings mirrored his. "And you've shown me that even in the hardest moments, there's always room for hope." The story ended not with a grand declaration, but with the quiet, mutual understanding of two people who had found solace and love in one another. Emma's life had come full circle. She had entered the Winters family's world as a struggling woman trying to help a sick girl, and now she stood as a woman transformed, respected, loved, and fulfilled. For Emma, Nicholas, and Sophia, this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one built on trust, compassion, and the belief that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to the most extraordinary outcomes.